playoff race, Frank. In the East, a few weeks ago, Pittsburgh looked like they were in pretty good position to lock down that first wild card spot. And now they wake up on March 20th and they're clinging to the edge of it as the Florida Panthers have closed the gap. Now, I know they have games in hand on the Islanders, but man, the Penguins just got spanked on the weekend. This is a little bit of a surprising twist here for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I would say this is sort of the inopportune time for a 3-game losing skid. And it's not just the 3-game losses. It's also how they looked in the losses. I mean, getting worked over twice at Madison Square Garden, back-to-back games against the New York Rangers. To me, I think more than anything, what it reinforces is the Pittsburgh Penguins may or may not be a playoff team this season. I just don't, even if they get in, I don't think they're anywhere close to competing for the prize.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, the Rangers, we consider sort of an outside threat. And this weekend, I don't know if the lopsided nature in which they won 13-0 and 15 unanswered goals over 3 straight games. Does that change your opinion? It doesn't for me, but the fact that they did it with 2 different goalies in net and all those things, like they're a really intriguing team nonetheless.
Oh, I still think the Rangers, like if they match up against New Jersey, that's going to be a heck of a series. And I think they've got lots of playoff experience. They've got some elite players. Like I think New York, if I look at Carolina and New Jersey, if I'm just talking top end elite players, I think the Rangers have the most. And sometimes, you get 1 or 2 of those guys at a different point taking over a game. That can be the difference in a series. So I think the Rangers are a dangerous team. Their defensive play, but Shesterkin, he hasn't been as consistent as he was last year, but he still had spurts where you're like, oh, this guy's one of the best goalies in the league. And if that shows up in the playoffs, that could be a tough time for either the Devils or the Hurricanes.
Well, I would say both New York teams. The Islanders, if they get in with Sorokin, who I think is going to – look, Olmark's going to win, but Sorokin's going to garner Vezina votes for sure. Mm-hmm. It's essentially a statistical toss-up right now as to who gets in. You've got 2 teams for 3 spots, and I think the person who does the best job with their playoff modeling is hockeyviz.com and Micah Blake McCurdy, our friend at Ineffective Math on Twitter. Right now, he says Florida is a 57% shot, and Pittsburgh is 64. The Islanders have the slight edge at 69. So between those 3 teams for 2 spots, like Florida has just kind of grounded out. Like they've had some ugly nights this season. They've had some ugly nights in the last, 6 to 8 weeks. And yet here they are playing arguably some of their best hockey of the season at the time when it matters most.
Yeah, and I like Florida's schedule too. And I know they play back-to-back tonight and tomorrow, but you're in Detroit and you're in Philadelphia, and both of those teams have the realization of playoffs aren't coming, that they've kind of stubbed their toe a little bit. It's always hard to win. We see those teams upsetting all the time, but I just like Florida. I think they have the most skill top to bottom of those 3 teams in my eyes. And, the Islanders, I give them credit without Matt Barzal, and there's no update on his injury. It's still dated. It's like the longest dated day ever. But I look at the Panthers, and they might have the lowest odds, Frank, but for me, the way they're playing and talent they have on their team, I still think they get in.
Yeah, I mean, a 10% shot. So which team is out? That's the big question.
Well, Pittsburgh, I can't get a read on the Penguins. Like 2 weeks ago, I'm like, okay, they found their game. It's Crosby, Malkin, they'll solidify things. And then their last few games, you're just like, they don't even look like a playoff team. So,
and Granlund has struggled, and
yeah, the Islanders have played the most games, and they're missing obviously one of their best offensive players on a team that doesn't have a lot of offense. So I still am leery, but you're right. Sorokin's the wild card there because he's just so good. They don't have to score a ton of goals to win. So,
and they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs is the truth.
Yes. Yeah. They're a tougher team because of their goaltender. I don't think there's any.
I also think the style of their play too, like they're pretty defensive minded. They're pretty physical, and they don't give up a lot of goals. So they only really need to be pretty opportunistic in a couple, think back to the coin flip analogy from Tom Dundon. Like they don't need a whole lot to get over to 51%.
No, that's fair. Like, and their schedule, like they get more rest here. Like games in hand can help, but also when you get late in the season, it just means you're playing way more games and you're playing more back to back in a condensed period of time. So, like Pittsburgh tonight, Frank, I think is the key game. Ottawa, right? Like the Sens are, they gave Toronto everything. That was a pretty exciting game on Saturday, and they're not rolling over. Then they got Colorado and Dallas. Like this is a tough week for Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I mean, Pittsburgh, it's kind of the same story. Like they just look old and slow.